Where are my games?
Oh, hey, Paul.
Hi, Lee. Have you seen Quinn's lately?
No, actually, no, I haven't.
Well, he's just been acting kind of suspiciously.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, he has. He has.
Oh, has he?
And I've had a number of things go missing. And I think it's him. I mean, I'm just talking about board games, about one each of all of my shoes, my clothes. I don't know why.
I mean, like, clearly we have to find him.
I agree. Can you help?
I mean, I could definitely keep an eye out.
Thank you. You just have to understand, he's just coming in and taking things all the time.
Of course I do, Paul. Of course.
Thank you.
If I see him doing anything untoward, I will definitely let you know. Absolutely.
Thanks. Just coming in, always touching everything. Hello? Hello? I don't know what's gonna go missing next. Ha! Right, two things that you might not know about me. One, I've now got trousers on, so that's sorted, that's fine. Two, keep it together, Paul, I'm quite a big fan of hidden movement games. Although I don't always mention this very often, because I don't actually play them very often. They can get a bit intense, they can get a bit focused, so I like to save them for special occasions, something to be savoured now and then. And, sorry? Oh, one or two of you don't know what hidden movement games are. Well, that's fair. Let's have a 60-second explanation in my building's public laundry room. Come on. Come on. Okay, let's be quick and let's not get caught in here. I don't know where I'm doing this. Hidden movement games are games where it's sort of hide and seek type things where usually one player, or occasionally a team, but usually one player, is trying not to be caught by all the other players, and there'll be something like a public board where everyone can see what the lay of the land is, and usually the chasing team are all on that and you can see them moving around, but the other person's location is most of the time hidden, and they're recording their own moves like on a separate piece of paper or on their own mini hidden board behind a screen or something. So they have to be honest and rigorous in checking where they go and telling you if you caught them, but of course they will be. And everyone has like special powers and objectives. Like the hidden player is usually trying to get to things and complete tasks before they get caught, before the game ends, and then the team's trying to catch them, and bits of the map sort of where you go but might have special powers, or you might have special powers that make it easier to hide or easier to chase. And hello, hang on. Does that make sense? Hopefully that makes sense. Specter Ops is retreading much of that same ground again, but in a potentially really exciting way. Look, basically it says Played Hat Games on the box, okay? It's from Nazca Games and Played Hat Games, and the idea of Played Hat doing a hidden movement game immediately excited me, even if a lot of things seem immediately very familiar as well. For example, you once again have up to 4 players who are all the hunters, and they're running around this sort of glossy board, this futuristic secret facility thing, to find one other player who is an agent who's sneaking in, obviously trying not to be seen, inching across the board turn to turn, while everyone else around them tries to form a net that gradually they shrink into a noose. But of course that secret agent can't be seen. Sure, the player is at the table playing the game, but they're hunched over this diagram of the board and they're secretly plotting their moves, they're suavely sipping their vodka. And at the end of every round, there's a check to see if their move has pulled them into the line of sight of one of the hunters. And if it has, then like any fair-minded player, they will declare, yes, I can be seen, and they'll put their figure on the board where they can be shot at, because obviously this is an agent who's breaking into something, and what's the natural response is, do you want to shoot them? You're going to have to shoot them, because if you don't shoot them, they'll just slip back into the shadows like a ghost in a graveyard. Now take a look at this board. While it would seem that there's a lot of straight lines in this, a lot of really long lines of sight, that's not really the case. It's actually broken up by all kinds of obstacles that very deliberately shake everything up, that just ruin anyone really having particularly good lines of sight beyond more than a few squares. That means there are an awful lot of places to hide. And it's also, look, it's quite big. It's quite a big board. It has a lot of squares on it. So as you as a hunter running around, how on earth are you going to find an agent in all of this? Well, your team just happens to have a host of special powers at their disposal, like, for example, a wolf's nose, which his paw sometimes comes off. I don't know if you can see that, his paws just come off. A wolf knows that it can smell things like a wolf. Or a psychic man who looks a bit upset, who can see into the past, which is it's a bit of a weird psychic power, but that's probably why he's upset. And a tiny car. You have a sort of a tiny car. Beep beep. Doesn't go on the board either, which is also a bit weird. So a game starts like this. All of the hunter people, his hands come off again, you can't see it, but it has. All of the hunter people are packed into the tiny car, which is sort of, I imagine it's like a golf cart or one of those luggage vehicles that you have at airports, or the weird thing from Garth Marenghi's Dark Place, if you've ever seen that, try that. It's somewhere on the board. It's represented, by the way, by this tiny token that's a little bit disappointing. The actual car itself sits off the board as an abstraction. But you know an agent has entered the facility at a certain point. You know there's been an intrusion, but you're a little bit too far away to actually get to them in enough time. So immediately as the hunters, your turn, pretty much every turn becomes negotiation, a sort of cooperation where you decide exactly how you're going to use all your different powers to zero in on this agent. Now, if you've seen our reviews of Letters from Whitechapel or Fury of Dracula or things like this, or if you've looked at, I think, pretty much any other hidden movement game, you'll see that the boards are usually designed with avenues of movement, directions that you head in that maybe you're committed to for a couple of turns. And that makes things feel like a chase, a pursuit, which is fine. The Specter Ops board is different. It's a lot more open, and pretty much any space that you're in, you can go in a bunch of different directions from that space all the time. So it feels like the hunters, as they drive around in the vehicle or get out from it and start running all over the place, aren't so much chasing as sort of throwing a net and gradually trying to shrink that net down, like they're fishing, sort of. And their powers reflect that. Now that cooperative hunter game of negotiation and working things out, it's only partly about positioning, it's only partly about saying, well, I'm going to go here and cover these angles. It's also really about who's going to use their special powers this turn, who's going to use their special powers every turn, because those powers usually involve sacrificing that vital movement. You always have to keep moving, you always have to keep progressing on a board this big, this open. For example, look, here is the beast, the wolf guy with the hand that falls off and the quite well-defined buttocks, actually, which I might give you a close-up of later, perhaps. If the beast moves slowly, then the beast can start sniffing, and if the beast can sniff, then they can actually detect the agent, if the agent is within a certain number of squares, and then the agent player has to say, well, you can smell me, I'm nearby. The puppeteer can remotely control the car and not actually be in the car at all, which can sometimes be really useful because you want to reposition that car because it has a built-in motion sensor, which is very helpful because it tells you roughly where the agent is, the direction that they are in. Or the psyker. The psyker can not move and instead detect where the agent was 2 turns ago, 2 turns back on their movement log, which is often a pretty good clue to roughly where they are. Or can also actually tell if the agent is about to touch something, touch one of their objectives. You know what, I should talk, because sniffing sounds a bit weird, touching sounds a bit weird. What's happening, Inspect? What is happening? Why is... Alright, I'll be honest with you, I've got no idea what's going on in Specter Ops. I mean, there's a nice small manual, and small manuals are good. I like small manuals. And it has some flavour text on the front that talks about the dichotomy between an organisation that runs things and makes everything homogenous and has rules, and then people who want to bring back creativity and freedom and chaos, and how these are in opposition. and it's a security. You're in a security facility. The agent is breaking in to sabotage this. I don't really know what's actually happening. The agent has to get to certain squares, and these are randomly determined at the start of each game by die rolls. And I don't. Are you stealing? You could be stealing. You could be stealing data. You could be introducing a virus into the system. You could be sabotaging all the things that make the tiny car work. With the psyker, you have to just say to the psyker, I'm in a place where I can touch something. And they're like, okay. But the thing is, it is still a tense experience. It's a tense experience regardless, particularly if you're the agent, because you're poring over this map and you're scribbling your coordinates down, turn after turn, in secret without anyone else seeing, suavely sipping your... It's almost gone. Suavely sipping your vodka, sometimes only inches away from the people who are chasing you, and they're at the same table. Everyone hunting you is sat at the same table, and you can hear their discussions, and you can hear what they're trying to do as they believe they're zoning in on you, and perhaps they are, as they name the very square that you're in, or the square that you were in just moments before that they've decided is now their new target. You don't have very much to defend yourself with either. You have your stealth, and you have 3 items of inventory that you've picked at the start of the game, some of which might be special powers depending upon the agent that you're playing, some of which are generic. They're things like smoke grenades or hollow decoys, but they only have a couple of uses each, and you have to be really, really judicious about when you employ them. If the game is tense while you haven't been spotted running around, scuttling across this facility, chuckling nervously at people who are trying to find you and can't, then it's a disaster when you are spotted. Because the moment you're seen, you can be shot at. And shooting at someone, it's easy. All you need to do is roll a die and score the number of spaces away that they are, or higher. So the closer you are, the more deadly you are. You can only take a handful of hits as well before you go down, and then it's all over. That's it. And that sort of is it, though. That's the thing. I mean, it's fine. You, as an agent, you run into a facility and you tack some things, and if you get out, then you're a good agent. Well done, agent. Or if you're the hunters, you see them and you shoot them until they fall over. And it's okay. It's a perfectly capable, competent game of hidden movement, and it produces tension and excitement. But you look at this big, glossy board with so much lovely art on it, and there's not really very much to actually interact with on the board. There's just spaces. As an agent, you have a special power or two and a couple of items, or as a hunter, your turn is generally a case of, do I do my certain thing, or do I not do my certain thing and just move somewhere else? Specter Ops it's fine, but I actually just thought there was going to be a lot more in the box, and that there was just going to be more to it, you know? But there is! Ah! Yeah. Oh. The thing is, if you play a 5-player game of Specter Ops, then something special happens. The agent player looks around the table, they look at all the other players, they look at who's playing, they look at their friends, they look at the characters that their friends are playing, and they dish out cards. And 3 of those cards just say, well, you're a hunter, because you're hunting me. 1 of those cards says you're a traitor, you're actually secretly on my team. And that means that if you cross the line of sight of that traitor character, you don't declare anything. They don't see you. And then at some point in the game, maybe if it becomes obvious that they're a traitor through circumstances, or whenever they choose, they can just switch sides. And they disappear, and they become another agent like you, scuttling around the facility, and the hunter team is a person down. Ow. Ow! And it's good, it adds a bit of friction to the game, you know, it adds friction that isn't there previously. And politics, silly team politics, because the hunters know that there's a traitor amongst them, and they end up second guessing things that people do, or doing things like doubling up on looking in a certain direction because you don't trust that you're companion can actually properly look at things. So you want to be stood next to them and looking the same way in case something moves, and you're like, why didn't you spot that? And really silly petty things happen, like the tiny car. You can actually vote on access to the tiny car, and if you don't trust someone and they want to use the tiny car, you can be like, this time we don't trust you. We've locked you out of the tiny car. It's really silly but slightly funny. It's quite good. I quite like it. I don't think it saves the game. You want to play with 5 players, but I don't think it saves the game, actually. I've got some reservations about Specter Ops. Hold on. Reservation number 1 is the manual. Now, I like small manuals, and I cannot lie. I'm very glad that it's pretty succinct and generally not bad, except it really needs some more frequently asked questions or errata. And the thing is, okay, there is errata. There's some on the Played Hat Games website, and you can go on Board Game Geek and also look at the forums for Specter Ops on there and find a lot of questions answered that should really have been answered in here. Reservation number 2. Now, I know I said this wasn't like a huge deal. It's sort of not a huge deal, but it is. I don't know what's happening in Specter Ops, and I don't feel that engaged in what I'm up to, because it feels like I'm playing playground tag. I feel sort of awful for saying that as well, because it's perfectly functional, and abstraction or lack of abstraction, or lack of theme isn't always a problem for me. I just didn't ever get particularly engaged whenever I played. Objection the third, number 3, the third. While I had fun with Specter Ops, I would recommend any other hidden movement game above it, just more. Like Letters from Whitechapel, which has sobering material. It's about Jack the Ripper murders in Victorian London. It's very good. We've done a video review of it. Copies are a bit thin on the ground right now though. Or Escape from the Aliens in Outer Space, other end of the spectrum. Very funny game about accidentally eating the wrong players around the table. Also a bit thin on the ground, but there are print and play copies you can find on their website, and if you want that and you can't print a copy off and play it, you're lazy and you're fundamentally a bad person. Or my first love, which is Fury of Dracula, which trying to find a copy of Fury of Dracula is a hidden movement game in itself. Fury of Dracula, I'm home. Where are you? Where are you hiding? Fury of Dracula, baby, where are you? Where are you? Looking for you. I am looking. Fury of Dracula. 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 Tiny car. Dracula. Fury. Dracula. Fury of Dracula. Where's the new toilet paper? Ah, Fury of Dracula. Fury of Dracula, where are you? Fury of Dracula. Fury of Dracula. I can't recommend Specter Ops because, listen, while I had fun, we all had fun playing Specter Ops. I think it's because I was thinking of somebody else. I had a hankering for a bit more than just what there was, and it was good. It was quite good, but I don't want to just run around touching things. It's a bit weird. I would prefer the dynamics of another hidden movement game where I am biting or stabbing or eating the other players, but you can't do that anymore. You can't. They don't let you bite people anymore because health and safety. Come here, darling. Furry Dracula, where are you, Furry Dracula? I don't recommend Specter Ops. It's quite good, but it should look for more. You can do better. Listen to me. You can do better than Specter Ops. If you do play it, you have to just play it with a 5-player traitor mechanic, because that's what makes it special. Otherwise, what's special in this world? Fury of Dracula is special. Fury of Dracula is special. Oh.